In the 1930s, today's Indonesia was a Dutch colony known as the Netherlands East Indies, or Dutch East Indies, covering a vast archipelago with more than 60 million inhabitants. Of these, 59 million were Indonesians, 1.3 million foreign Orientals, mainly Chinese, and 240,000 Europeans, mainly Dutch. Within the latter total were significant numbers of Eurasians, or people of mixed race. The majority of the population and infrastructure, and the seat of the colonial government, were on the island of Java. The colony was a global exporter of strategic materials, providing 29% of the world's rubber, 20% of its tin, and 97% of the anti-malarial drug quinine. It also had substantial oil fields, whose products represented 13% of Japan's oil imports, and was the fourth largest exporter of oil in the world, behind the US, Iran, and Romania. Following the invasion and occupation of the Netherlands by Japan's ally, Germany in May 1940, and the colony's allegiance thereafter to a Dutch government in exile in London, the colonial authorities faced many difficulties. Japanese diplomatic missions pressed for enhanced access to the colony's oil, rubber and tin, but these were left unsatisfied, increasing the risk of invasion. On the 26th of July 1941, Japan lost 93% of its oil supply after US President Franklin D. Roosevelt issued an executive order which froze all of Japan's US assets and embargoed all oil exports to Japan. In addition, the Dutch government in exile, at the urging of the Allies and with the support of Queen Wilhelmina, broke its economic treaty with Japan and joined the embargo in August. This left Japan's military and economic reserves included only a year and a half's worth of oil. As a US declaration of war against Japan was feared if the latter took the East Indies, the Japanese planned to eliminate the US Pacific Fleet first, allowing them to overtake the islands. This led to the attack on Pearl Harbor on the 7th of December 1941. In late November 1941, the Netherlands government in the East Indies, under the Dutch government in exile, began preparing for war against Japan. Ships of the Royal Netherlands Navy were sent to sea, and the Royal Netherlands East Indies Army Air Force was mobilized. On the 4th of December, 3 days after having decided on a policy of war against America, Britain, and the Netherlands, the Japanese government decided instead to treat the Netherlands as a quasi-enemy until actual hostilities occur. This was in the hopes that the Dutch would not preemptively destroy oil installations before the Japanese were ready to invade. On the 8th of December 1941, on day of Pearl Harbor and invasion of Malaya and Philippines has started, the Netherlands declared war on Japan in a public proclamation. The Dutch declaration did not alter the Japanese decision, and the latter's declaration of war did not come until the 11th of January 1942. Holland essentially was a naval power. Its homeland was occupied by Germany in May 1940. The land power of the Dutch East Indies was not very great, and after the occupation of the homeland, it was forced to rely on local reinforcements to strengthen its war potential, and on reinforcements from the Americans and the British to build up its military preparations. The primary task of the Royal Netherlands East Indies Army, or Koninklijke Nederlandse Indische Leger, or simply KNIL, was internal security, which maintaining peace and order. Defense from external threats was principally assigned to the Royal Netherlands Navy, and particularly so in the outer regions, the islands beyond Java and Madura, and Tarakan and Balikpapan. But the Dutch increased the KNIL military budget when the threat became more acute with the Japanese seizure of the southern Chinese island of Hainan in February 1939. In December 1941, its force consisted of an inner territory army of 94,000 men, 3 divisions as its core, while the outer territory army of 19,000 troops, 15 infantry battalions as its core, reaching a total number of troops of 113,000 men. Of this figure, 34,000 are enlisted soldiers, of whom 28,000 were indigenous. Regarding combat vehicles, the KNIL counted 24 tanks and 142 armoured vehicles among its possessions, while Royal Netherlands Navy counted 5 cruisers, 8 destroyers and 12 submarines. For air defence, the Royal Netherlands East Indies Army Air Force has the total number of 300 frontline aircraft. Later, on the 15th of January 1942, the American British-Dutch Australia Command, or ABDCOM, was established to defend the Malay Barrier. The Supreme Command was given to British Field Marshal Sir Archibald Wavell. ABDCOM was charged with holding the Malay Barrier for as long as possible in order to retain Allied control of the Indian Ocean and the Western Sea approaches to Australia. Although the forces were combined, they were too diverse, scattered, weak, and uncoordinated to be effective. They also had differing priorities, with the British believed the defence of the territory of Singapore and the eastern entrances to the Indian Ocean to be paramount. The Americans and Australians, meanwhile, did not want a total penetration of Southwest Asia that would deprive them of bases necessary for any serious counterattack, and the Dutch considered Java and Sumatra, their second homeland, where they had been trading and living for over 3 centuries, to be the most important place to defend. In order to carry out the invasions, the Japanese Army and Navy jointly devised the operation plans in minute detail. Each operation was carefully coordinated with and dependent upon the success of the other. By use of surprise attacks, spearheaded by air power, the Japanese expected to complete the invasions in a very short time and thus free all forces for defense against counterattack or for offensive action in other theaters. The 16th Army, under the command of General Imamura Hitoshi, was charged with the Dutch East Indies operation, which contains elements of 2nd Division, the 56th Mixed Infantry Group, 3 tank regiments, 5 artillery battalions under the direct control of the Army, and 88 anti-aircraft guns as the core. Later, the 38th Division to be diverted after the Hong Kong operation. Then the 48th Division to be diverted after capturing Manila, and South Seas Detachment to be diverted after the captures of Guam and Rabaul. The total number of 16th Army troops numbered around 34,000 men. The Army was supported by the 3rd Air Force and the 3rd Fleet. The offensive would depend on the success of Japanese operations elsewhere, and on speed before Allied reinforcements could arrive. Malaya, British Borneo, and the Philippines would first have to be captured as springboards for the invasion, and 2 of the allocated divisions were deployed for preceding operations in China and the Philippines. The offensive would follow 3 axes of advance. First is western thrust, via the South China Sea, second is central thrust, via the Makassar Strait, and third is eastern thrust, via the Banda Sea or Malacca Passage. In Borneo, the goal was to capture the oil production areas of Tarakan and Balikpapan, and on Sumatra, those at Palembang. After the capture of Malaya, including Singapore, and the occupation of the Philippines, Borneo, Celebes, and Sumatra, it was planned to combine all forces and launch an invasion against Java, the heart of the Dutch Empire. By this time, it was expected that the carrier striking force would have completed operations in the Pearl Harbor, Wake, and Rabaul areas, and it was planned also to employ its overwhelming power to ensure quick and complete victory. For the invasion of Java, Japanese airfields would have to establish at Palembang, Kuching, Banjarmasin, Makassar, and Kendari. The islands of Ambon and Timor also had to be occupied, to secure the Japanese left flank and cut the supply route from Australia. Upon completion of these plans, the Japanese Army and Navy launched intensive training programs, designed to fit each unit for the specific mission assigned therein. No matter how strong Japanese is, many Dutch colonials believed that the Japanese would never reach the East Indies, let alone Java. The colonists recalled the usual jokes that went around regarding Japanese military prowess. The Japanese while shooting would always miss, because they were slit-eyed. Another joke were Japanese planes were made out of meat tins. And the Japanese couldn't run fast enough because of their crooked legs. In the future video, we will cover each detail of operation in each Dutch East Indies island. These include the invasion of Borneo, the Celebes campaign, Battle of Timor, the New Guinea campaign, Sumatra campaign, and last with Battle of Java. Thank you for watching. Please stay tuned on the channel for the future video, press like, leave comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos.